I found this project online a couple months back. It's called Google NSynth, standing for Neural Synthesizer. Uh, I'd never worked with electronics or soldering or anything like that. Maybe a couple minutes in college, circuit boards. So I don't know. I thought it'd be a cool way to get my feet wet. What this is exactly is like you plug in an instrument, you got like a MIDI cable coming in the top, like let's say you put in a keyboard, and then you can apply four other instruments. Those four main dials are selecting the instrument. You can see like top right you got flute, bottom right you got snare, and then Google uses a machine learning algorithm that you put into this thing, and basically it takes the input sound and creates a completely new sound based off the other inputs from the NSynth itself. So let's say you've got flute, snare selected, you can drag the touchscreen menu over with your finger and kind of like weight the average between those, and out comes a brand new sound when you play your keyboard or whatever. The bottom dials are really basic, just volume, attack, decay, sustain, release, things like that. So I thought I would record the build. I found it pretty interesting how badly I failed at this stuff. I thought maybe other people could watch me fail, and if they have any comments, encouragement, criticisms, open to hearing it. Or I could look back on this in a couple years and hopefully I've gotten better at the craft and I can have a good laugh about this. So that's where we're at. So the whole project started with the circuit board, of which I knew nothing. I had to figure out how to get these files loading up on my PC. They were really complicated and I didn't know how to work with them. I ended up ordering like 20 different boards because I kept screwing this up. You would think you just send the file to a company and they make it, but it's quite a bit more complex than that. Eventually the boards did come in. I ordered all the little components that solder onto the boards, another giant pain in the ass. I ordered some silk screens eventually because it turns out it's really hard to apply solder to the places you need it to be. Bought some hot air soldering kits. I bought actual soldering kits. I spent a lot of time trying to get these little components on the board itself. You can see right there, mass frustration occurs like constantly because the components are so tiny and the hot air gun itself just like blew them around. I don't know if they're like statically charged or what, but it fucking freaked me the fuck out every 10 seconds. I was just like, just go on the board. Go on the board, oh my god. But you couldn't even pick the things up with tweezers. So just putting the components on alone took me like a month. And I know I could have ordered it with the components already attached, but I thought, I should learn something and just try to do it myself. Big fucking mistake there. But I'm glad I did it in the end. So here's me trying to put these resistors on. What these do, they kind of manage the touchscreen in the middle there, so that center area, you run your finger over it and it measures the resistivity of your skin touching the board, and that's how it kind of like controls the input. And I'm sorry if you know about electronics and I'm butchering the nomenclature here. Well, sue me, but whatever. So there I am, soldering it down, using a hot air gun. It's pretty cool how the solder itself kind of sucks the component directly to the board in the position it needs to be, assuming it doesn't blow it off first. There was a hell of a lot of these. I shorted out a ton of connections and had to like get a soldering sucker, suck it off, try again, especially on those little microprocessors with the fingers you can see in the background. But eventually the day did come where I got most of these on. Little push, because I'm OCD on things like this. You can see a good view up here. It was really fucking hard to record this with my phone in one hand and everything in the other hand, so apologies. Like right now, like I'm trying to record me putting on these last little capacitors. I don't even have the camera viewing it. There we go. Capacitors were really hard to read. I had like literally 40 different sizes of capacitors, like in microfarads and whatever, and just reading them alone took me like, it was just a pain in the ass. I cannot overstate how dumb of a project this was to make my first project in electronics. Really, really too complicated for a beginner like me. But Google made it sound like, oh, this is something anyone can do. Just read the instructions that actually don't tell you how to do anything. I'm pretty sure I was overheating the components as well. I didn't really know the right setting for the hot air gun, so I was just roasting them. By the end of it, I think I got it down right though. And I also, by the end of it, just started using a regular soldering tip for certain pieces of this, which went just as poorly, and you'll see that in a minute. So there's the board with most of my like SMD components installed. Not too shabby. I'd already sucked off most of the excess solder on these. I was feeling pretty good about it. So it was time to add in the little LCD display. There were a couple little connectors I had to bridge, so there's just me applying some soldering paste to those connectors. Very gently, very delicately. And there it is, soldered. Connections closed. So I don't know why the screen needed that to work, but apparently whatever I'm doing, it did. I had installed the screen. There it is on the board. That's the board right side up for the first time. I'd also put on the dials at some point and USBs. This is the point where I learned how a diode works and that they're one directional. I just assumed a diode was like an LED and it just made light. Turns out they're like controlling the flow of electricity in one direction. I didn't know that for a minute. I'm like, why is this thing not working? Oh, my diode is backwards. Motherfuck, again! I'm just freaking out because that stupid diode, I only had one and I ruined it and I had to wait for another one to come in. So right here I was putting on some standoffs to hold the board itself. Turns out the wrench didn't actually fit in the corner here, so I had to shove tweezers in and use that to screw it down. I did actually laser cut the acrylic myself. That's why it's shitty and it broke, because I sized the tolerancing wrong because I was being quick and stupid. So it didn't actually snap together all that well. Corner just chipped right off. The whole thing is kind of held together by 4 screws, nothing crazy, a couple ports in it. Here's me test fitting the board. I didn't have the screen in at that time. Couldn't get it to drop in because I'm dumb. There you go, yep, you gotta put the ports in first, obviously. Fits nicely for the most part. I'm happy with it. Could have been a worse fit. I did have to widen up some of the holes a little, but not a big deal. Looks good. I chose the color purple because I like purple. Got that lean. Here's me 3D printing the dials. I hadn't done much home 3D printing, but I did break out the printer for this project. It seemed like a better use of my time than like trying to order dials from a company. Only took like a couple hours. And click clack, there we go, looking good, working good. That dial, like I said, will select the musical instrument you want on that corner. Here's me flashing the firmware. Like the Google NSynth firmware itself is massive, and I had to put it on the Raspberry Pi. It's this like 64 gig card. We're validating, and some more validating. I waited so long for this, it failed like 100 times. I don't know why. I don't know if I'll ever know why. Finishing. Yeah, let's go! I was so excited for that stupid thing to be done so I could test it. Here's me installing the Raspberry Pi board itself. Way too many connectors, and I tried to do it by hand with this little soldering iron, and not a super good job. Not horrible either. Better than when I started. Look at these old ones I did. Horrible. So I go to plug in the power for the first time, get all excited, and whomp, the thing snapped off instantly, because that was one of the things I first soldered on when I didn't know jack shit about how to solder. Oh, yep, just fell right off. Here, let me flip the board over. You can see the solder is still there. That's how cold it was. It's like the solder's on the board, but it's not touching the pins at all. I resoldered it. We got power to the board. The stupid shit still isn't working correctly. You can see it's blinking, giving me a bunch of errors. That blinking light corresponds to an error code, so I had to sit there and watch that stupid thing forever and figure it out. Eventually, I did get it working, and we've got output. So I tinkered around with the software for a long time, like just trying to get it to work on a TV screen. You can see in the top left corner here, that is the output that will be on the tiny screen on the circuit board itself. Here's me trying to print a stand for the entire board. I just thought it'd be cool to put on a stand. Here is the board I'm putting on the very last dials at the bottom. Specifically, this is the volume knob I think I'm working on. I can't film and solder at the same time. I'm just butchering it. So let me put my phone down. Oh, look, it's done. Not a super great solder, but again, I'm doing better than when I started, where basically it was 100% fail rate. But I'm not proud of this, you know? I'm not proud of how bad that looks. And this is pretty much the end of the board. Like, I got the thing working to some extent. My problem is I don't have a keyboard with a MIDI connection, so it's not like I can really test this thing out in the way you'd like to. Why on earth did I choose a project that I can't really test? Lord only knows. So here's this little stand I printed, so this could be a desk ornament for a little bit. It's just a conversation piece, you know. People are like, whoa, what's that purple doohickey in the corner? And I can just kind of tell them about the time I tried to make an instrument, a synthesizer for an instrument that I don't own. But hopefully the day comes where I do buy an instrument, a keyboard, and I plug it into that MIDI connector right there, and I actually make cool, novel, unique sounds. But for the time being, it'll chill on this shelf and look pretty. If you got any feedback or other cool projects I could work on, let me know. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. Bye.